Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of RC Classic Garage, where today we're back on the Alfa Romeo 1750 GTV barn find. Now, if you've been following this series, this car spent 40 years in a barn, completely untouched. Now, in the last few episodes, we've done the rear, the boot lid, this side of the car, and the floorboards. And today, it's time to move on to the front. Now, when looking closely at the front end, we knew that this wing had pretty much had it with a few old dodgy repairs still in there. We also knew we needed to replace the front crossmember where it had a bit of rust, but you can see how it's also gone on the corners. And well, thank goodness we've got a lot of replacement panels. So we have a new front wing, we have a new front valance, and we have a new crossmember. And now we'll also be sorting out the rest of the engine bay. We'll be closing up a lot of holes that aren't meant to be there, fixing some old dodgy repairs in the corner, also replacing the battery tray and any other dodgy metal that we find along the way. So hopefully we've got everything we need to now tackle the front end, and hopefully we don't get any more surprises along the way. Let's get stuck in. So we cut off the old valance, and well, no big surprises here. Exactly what we were expecting. But this does give us an opportunity to tidy things up. The wiring behind the front end is, well, a bit messy. The wires themselves are in decent condition, not brittle at all, but the layout needs some proper sorting, and it's had some non-original extensions over the years. But let's strip out the wiring and we'll get that all sorted. With everything stripped back, we can finally see what we're dealing with. On the driver's side, the damage isn't too bad. It's manageable, really. But over on the passenger side, it's a different story. The corrosion is far worse than the driver's side, and it's clear this is where most of the work will be needed. Now, next up, we removed the stabilizing bar. The bolts were rusted solid, and it took a fair bit of heat and a lot of persuasion to finally get them moving. And the passenger side, well, it's so rusted away that only one bolt was actually holding it on. This entire section will need to be completely remanufactured. Paul starts on the driver's side by cutting away the rotten metal from the end of the crossmember we're replacing. He grinds everything back to reveal solid metal, making sure there's a strong foundation for the weld. With the section cleaned up, Paul fabricates a brand new end from fresh metal. Real craftsmanship at work here. He carefully measures, test fits, and adjusts. And then he cuts the body to fit the new panel exactly the same as the old one. With the new panel looking good, everything measured up and fitting as it should, he applies the weld-through primer, clamps it in place, and welds it in. Once in, he grinds back the welds, cleans up the area, and it looks like it's always been there. Now that the driver's side is solid, we can finally cut out the old rusted crossmember. With it removed, we test fit the new one to make sure everything lines up correctly. Once we're happy with the test fit, we move on to the passenger side by cutting away the old metal. And this is where things get bad. We cut away until we reach good, solid metal to weld to. But the more we cut, the more rust we uncover. A lot has to go. Still, it's not a concern because we've got the driver's side as a good template and a guide to rebuild this entire section. There's a lot of fabrication ahead on the passenger side, but Paul begins with the end of the crossmember. He shapes a new panel, test fits it, applies weld-through primer, then welds it in place before grinding it back. He also fabricates a smaller panel for the front section of the crossmember, carefully fitting it to restore the strength in this area. With the repairs on both sides of the crossmember done, we can now move on to welding in the new crossmember, which comes in two pieces, a lower section and a top section. Starting with the lower half, we clean up the entire area, take careful measurements, and double check that everything is square and straight. After plenty of test fits and remeasure, we're finally ready to clamp it in place and weld in the bottom section. With everything cleaned up, we can move on to fitting the top section of the crossmember. The area is prepared, the panel is set in place, squared up and clamped down. Once it's fully welded, the welds are ground back to leave a strong, smooth finish that looks the part. We now move on to the passenger side of the engine bay, and there's quite a lot of damage here. So let's get straight in and start cutting it all out. First up comes the lower panel. It's heavily pitted, so we'll be replacing it with a brand new one. Next, the battery tray. There are a few small holes in it, so that's coming out and will also be replaced. Once the battery tray was out, we uncovered some rust underneath, and that will all need to be cut out. But on top of that, there was some bad old repairs. This whole section is a bit of a mess, and it's clear the car was involved in a minor accident at some point. The wing and the inner structure were poorly repaired, and the wing itself had been replaced. Now the wing isn't in terrible condition, but definitely wasn't fitted properly when it was replaced. Looks like someone didn't want to remove the door, so they welded it from the inside, which isn't ideal. There's also a small amount of rust in the water channel, which is tricky to repair cleanly. So, with the wing being replaced badly, the whole area needing a lot of work, I made the decision to cut the wing off completely and fit it with a brand new one. I know it's an extra £550, but honestly, I think it's worth it in the long run. It's just a shame because the old wing wasn't too bad. Now that the wing's off, we've got great access to really sort everything out properly. We can now get to all those old repairs that just weren't done to my standard. And I'm also finding a few more areas of weak metal that could definitely do with being cut out and replaced. But this is the kind of access that makes a proper job possible, so we're going to take full advantage of it. With a large portion of this side now cut away, Paul gets to work and starts working his magic, skillfully crafting new repair panels from scratch. It's always the same meticulous process. Create a template, measure and check, adapt and fit, make sure all the metal is perfectly clean, then protect it with weld-through primer. Once it's all prepped, everything's clamped into place and welded, then carefully cleaned up to ensure that they blend seamlessly into the car. He makes it look so easy, but this is a result of years of experience, a true craftsman at work. Now that the wings are off, we have a chance to really clean up the engine bay and repair any non-original holes and bad metal. We start by burning off all the old underseal and paint, taking everything back to bare metal. Next, we will close the non-original holes. This car had an aftermarket air horn system fitted, and whoever installed it just drilled straight into the engine bay wall with self-tappers. All these holes will now be closed up properly. Once welded, the area is ground back clean, leaving no trace the holes were ever here. We also found a small section of dodgy metal that needed replacing. The process is the same. Cut it out, make a repair patch, weld it in, and grind it back flush. Strong, neat, and then ready for the next stage. And this process is repeated anywhere we see metal we are not happy with. With everything back to bare metal and all the repairs completed, this is the perfect time to treat the entire area with rust killer. That way, if there are any contaminants still in the metal, they'll be neutralized before we move on. Once that's dried, we finish by spraying on a rust preventative undercoat. This gives the whole area a long-lasting protection and solid foundation for the next stage of restoration. This is also an ideal time to prep the panels we'll be replacing, the front valance and the two wings. While they're off the car, we can paint the insides properly, making sure every surface is protected. Once the panels are welded on, there are areas you simply can't reach. The process is the same for all of them. Clean the surface, give it a key with a scotch pad, apply an anti-rust primer, then a guide coat in ochre yellow, followed by a few protective coats. This way, every panel is sealed and ready to last years to come. Good news! The rebuilt engine from the previous episode has been delivered. The delivery driver couldn't get his trolley over my stone driveway, which left me with the challenge of moving it about the 30 odd meters across the stones. Let's just say it required a bit of creativity to get it safely into the garage. Now the engine looks absolutely fantastic and it has come back fully assembled, including the gearbox. It has a new slave cylinder, a new starter motor, new engine mounts, new electronic 123 distributor, a new alternator. Basically, the motor is ready to just drop back into the engine bay when it's been painted. Now this engine is really going to look the part when we fit these rebuilt carburetors together. There are a few accessories like the exhaust manifolds and the airbox that we will be sending off to powder coating so that when it's ready to drop back in the car, it looks as good as it runs. Now, a big thank you to the guys at Veloce Sport who rebuilt this engine. If you missed that episode, I will leave a link in the description below, so make sure you check it out. So guys, we have made some great progress on the front end of this car. We have completed all repairs on the right-hand inner wing, the front end, and fitting the new crossmember. We do still have one small repair at the bottom of the anti-roll bar. So really the next job is to refit the new front wings and front valance, but we can't do that until we've hung the passenger door. So please join me in the next episode when we'll be tackling the passenger side of this car. We'll be fitting the new door with its new door hinges. We'll be doing a new outer sill, doing some floor repair patches, and then we'll finally be in a position when we can fit the outer wings and new front valance. So if you've enjoyed the episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for watching another episode of RC Classic Garage. See you all next time. Ciao.